Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. One of us just dropped out, but we'll be getting her back in a second. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Blue Island's, what is this, fourth
Hey,
episode?
Eighth.
Fifth
This is our eighth
episode?
episode.
Eighth
this is our
episode?
eighth episode.
This is
Eighth
our eighth
episode.
episode.
Eighth
Yes,
episode
Eighth
of
episode,
Blue
bro.
Island after a 2-week hiatus for a few reasons.
2 weeks.
We're sorry for being, first of all, for pushing things back on the show. We know people love tuning in and seeing, local thoughts on issues going on here on Long Island and nationally, but we had a few things come up. We're happy to be back. We're happy to be here and keep the discussion. And here is our fourth. Fantastic. We are all here back together. This feels good, guys. How are all of you?
Good.
I
Happy to be back.
Happy to be back. Somber.
I'm
for the
so
news
excited.
spreading, but excited to be back.
am so excited.
So-
we got the four together. The Fab Four is back.
Fabulous four.
Isn't it fantastic? Where's that copyrighted?
So I feel like we took this break and like a million different things have happened since we took the break. I mean, there's so much that we're gonna want to catch up on and we'll catch up on in future episodes, if not now. I think right now we want to focus our attention on what's probably on everybody's mind right now is the crisis going on in Ukraine with the Russian Federation's operation into the country. But there's so much going on right now, not just nationally, not just out in Ukraine, but locally, with redistricting. That's been a major change that not a lot of people, I think, are aware of or are necessarily, wanting to spend the time dissecting and figuring out. So I think at some point we'll talk about redistricting. We'll talk about, some of the local Long Island representatives who said that they're not going to run for re-election, and that's going to leave a bunch of open seats out here. It's, in the middle of what's coming up to be a critical midterm election prior to the next presidential election. There's so much to talk about, but today we're going to talk about the Ukraine, especially because turns out I wasn't aware of this, guys. I don't know if you guys were aware, but Long Island is host to actually a relatively sizable community of Ukrainians here.
Yep.
I did not know that actually.
Laren, I'm pretty sure you. I think I remember seeing you mention that at one point.
I don't know
Did you?
if I did, but I am aware of it in the sense that there's a large Ukrainian population that also is in certain areas where Polish populations are as well.
Mhm.
For some reason. Like I know that here in Riverhead, there's a Polish town, which also though has some Ukrainians in it as well. And what Lisa was just commenting on is the church there in Riverhead is having a I don't know if it's a protest against the war. It's a peace rally happening tomorrow in Riverhead. I believe it's at the church. I'll get details and post it up in Blue Island later on. But it's going to be at
church
noon.
is it?
It's a Catholic church, but it's a Ukrainian. It's St. John the Baptist, Ukrainian church in Riverhead.
I'm gonna highlight this Riverhead Town Hall.
Oh, it's at Riverhead Town Hall. Good, Lisa knew. Awesome.
There
So
we
it's going to
go.
be 12 o'clock
Thank you,
at
Lisa.
Riverhead Town Hall then, but sponsored by the church, and it's because the church is a Ukrainian church. Also, that church is collecting donations to send out as packages, relief packages for displaced Ukrainians, and the like. That I don't know if it's going to Ukraine or Poland or both, but to help the people there in need.
Yeah.
Good.
I think I remember reading a story from I think it was like yesterday. There were protests, or there's been a push from Ukrainian Americans on Long Island to push. I think this was led by or pushed especially by Lee Zeldin and Bruce Blakeman to remove Russian diplomats from what's called the Killenworth compound. I don't really know too much about it, but I believe it's in Nassau County, and so they're trying to expel Russian diplomats from
Wow.
there after the Ukraine situation. I don't know where everybody stands on that issue, but I'm just gonna go out and I'm just gonna come out and kind of say, just the idea of starting to kind of push away Russian diplomats doesn't 100% kind of sit well with me. From what I understand from the diplomatic community, having grown up among many diplomats, my dad being a diplomat or a former diplomat working in the UN, a lot of these Russian diplomats were not 100% aware of how serious the invasion was going to be, or if some of them were not even aware of, like, especially the lower level ones that are serving in, say, lower positions like the budgeting committee, the Fifth Committee of the United Nations, and other spots. They were not 100% aware of the of this invasion,
Well,
of
you
whether
can
or not it
see-
was even going to happen.
You can see too, many Russians are against this themselves. I mean,
Absolutely.
they've been under the boot of Putin for forever now, and they did not want this. And many of them have family in Ukraine. Just as a point too, I want to make. I just found out about this, but Russia calls it the Ukraine. It's not actually the Ukraine. It's just Ukraine. So it's something I was like becoming hypersensitive to like keep that in mind, because Ukrainian people just say Ukraine. But anyway, yeah, you see the images of Russians in protests, and it's not like protests here in America where they just maybe get arrested and that's it. This is like long sentences because it's illegal to protest.
Absolutely. Within
so-
the first day of protesting in Russia, I think there were like over 1,000 arrests alone of
Yeah.
Russian citizens in that country. I mean, we can't pin it all on Russian people. This is the government making a decision or taking a decision that is very much against the wills of the people, and we know this is how the Russian government operates.
And
The Russian government, yeah. Go
no,
ahead, Nick.
finish your thought.
I kind of was finished my thoughts, so continue.
I was just gonna. I think that's what, like, going off of that. One thing that I think that's been like particularly concerning to me, just like crawling the internet as this has been going on, is just how pro-sanction, like pin down Russia for their aggression, which is an understandable sentiment. Like, I understand people want the Russian government to really feel the heat and get retaliated on in as many effective ways as possible to try to mitigate or prevent the conflict from escalating. But things like, I would like to remind everybody that things like sanctions, like actions like sanctions, I can't think of a single instance when a sanction against a nation has actually effectively convinced a government to stop doing what it's doing. At best, sanctions have hurt people a lot, just the regular citizens in a country, much more than it ever hurts a government. And this is demonstrated perfectly by, how U.S., for example, has handled sanctions in the Middle East or handled sanctions against North Korea. Almost every time the U.S. has issued sanctions against countries in the Middle East, like North Korea, it's always like hurting. It's always preventing government from food getting to people's homes. From people being able to like continue to like make the money that they can make to survive. And
at the same time, I have to say, like, I'm somewhat thankful though that it was done with cutting SWIFT, because that's also though how they get their they replenish supplies, ammunitions, the things that they need, to continue this war in perpetuity, and so I'm hoping in a way that it's short-lived struggle. But I don't know, like, I'm not a war expert. I have no idea.
So what I would say with response to that is when you when you look at what's happened with regards to economic punishments being dealt out to Ukraine, I think Germany did make a really big step with regards to hurting Russia with their I believe correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they officially kind of canceled the I forget the name, the pipeline that was being
Nord
built
Stream
between
2.
Nord Stream 2 pipeline that was being built. And I would chalk that up as
Let me just clarify real quick. So Germany, as far as I remember, last thing I heard on that is that they paused like certification of it or something
So
like that. Like they didn't
today
cancel it?
today came out a big push from Germany, because Germany was very hesitant to do a lot of this. And in order for sanctions to even have a significant effect on the Russian government, it would have to take a big united push from Europe and the United States and other countries as well.
And by the way, countries out further east like China, because even just to seg off of the ban from SWIFT, that's just cutting Russia off from like the Western banking institutions. China has its own system and its own infrastructure that this is kind of like a double-edged sword situation, because by banning them from the SWIFT banking system, we're further pushing them to strengthen their relationship with a country like China, because now they're going to increase their. Go ahead.
Here's my theory, and it's just a theory, but we were talking about this off camera before, and I know I got a weird way of arriving at this this thought process, so just bear with me on my weird train. Watching Inventing Anna, right, it was a show about a con artist, right? And when she went to trial, they had to prove that she was dangerously close to getting away with the con, right? That's how I feel about Trump when he wanted us to get out of NATO and wanted us to, he was basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Courting Putin and China. And so to me, we were dangerously close to that alliance becoming reality. And China, I think that they are stepping very carefully because Biden is in office right now, because it's not Trump. I think this whole thing was supposed to go a completely different way. And I think that Trump's known about it for a very long time. And
that's a great take. Keep going.
That's a fantastic take. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I feel in my gut.
I think that's what I'm thinking. That's how I'm thinking it is too. Like Putin did. I think Putin thought this would go a lot smoother than it actually is going.
Yeah.
I think because of his own propaganda machine that has infiltrated America and turned all of our people, especially Republicans, into these QAnon robots, freedom fighting, whatever the heck they are, brain warped people. He actually believed though that is the loud majority, right? He believes his own propaganda that he put into America.
And just, let's not discount the fact that he might be in the process of he over the years has probably surrounded with himself with yes men. His closest circle is probably full of people who are too scared to even tell him the truth about, how's our organization, how's our logistics. Like I'm sure that throughout that the Russian military is rife with corruption, rife with like mismanagement, mostly because a lot of the mid-level and senior level leadership are too afraid to even bring up any possible issues that could be going on for fear of
there's a reason why Trump really likes Putin, and that's because they can tell they're both cut from the same cloth. They both like yes men. They both hate not being in power. They both want to destroy and delegitimize anyone who talks against them. And if the parallel is true here, where else is it true? Russia has been showing its hand as a paper tiger during this invasion. When the invasion first began, you would have never thought that Ukraine would be able to fight back so well, that Russia would want to have ceasefires with no preconditions. This is a massive win for Ukraine. It's a massive win for the West, and it really does highlight the fall of Russia and how far they've actually fallen. in
Well, I
supply.
think.
Also,
are
wait,
we
wait,
sure
wait,
that this
Can I
Go
say-
ahead.
can I say
Let Lauren
something?
go. Let's
Oh, it's not over. It's not over.
Sorry.
But they thought
But so TikTok, which is I know so silly and crazy that we live in a world where we can watch a war on TikTok better than we can in our own news networks. But TikTok has highlighted the fact that many Russians did not know that they were going into this situation that are enlisted. Many Russians did not know that they would be going to kill people. And so there are people in the Russian army that are also in protest. They're like basically going to work doing a bad job. Now, I'm not saying that Russia has a great army. I don't think that they do. I think you're right. I think it's a paper tiger. But I also think that there's a little bit of that element as well to this whole scenario.
It's a nightmare
think-
on all fronts for as far as Russia is concerned.
Yeah.
I think it's been an incredible realization to see how strong Ukraine has been able to keep this going and defend themselves. I will say though, Russia does still possess the largest army in Europe, the largest land army in Europe
Yeah.
at least. They did win in Syria when Obama. I remember Obama mentioned that he thought that Syria would be a quote unquote quagmire for Russia. That did not turn out to be so. Russia was able to keep Assad in power. They were able to flip that conflict around, and they have essentially claimed victory there. A victory for Russia in this Ukraine conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a complete and total defeat of Ukraine. It can be he can. I mean, yes, he would. His ultimate total victory would be installing a new, more compliant, like a puppet sort of government. But if he's able to at least take another chunk of Ukraine and partition Ukraine a little bit, that's a pretty decent victory for Russia as well. You know,
He wants the separatist areas, the two areas that he designated as
he
separate
wants
and
Autonomous
independent.
regions. Yeah, it's in the
He-
Donbass region,
think-
the
I think it's
Luhansk
a-
and Donetsk region.
I think that his actions though show that his win. What he was really looking for was, as Raj said, to make Belarus 2.0 out of Ukraine.
Mhm.
But if he gets those regions, it's still a victory for him. Like I said, but all I'm saying is that in the long run, Russia has more resources, and there's a war of attrition. If this keeps going on, I don't know how long Ukraine can hold on. But so
Mhm.
far, this has been a win in the war for Ukraine.
I
Win-
think,
I don't
win-
think
win the
so.
battle, not the war.
I
but-
think as long as
Ali-
Ukraine continues to receive resources from the West, that Russia doesn't actually stand a chance.
ultimately
And also,
Russia wants.
Ali just said down below, she said that, Russia has the most nukes. Okay, doesn't matter because we're right behind them in the amount of nukes that we have. And on top of that, you get the world involved in this and Russia's done. So Russia's not even, I'm not even concerned right now about them going there.
When it comes to getting the world involved, the world meaning what? Because what side of this conflict will China be on? China is not. China is a
They
massive
depend on
superpower,
us.
folks.
They depend
China
on
depend.
us.
They depend on us, but they're
We depend
also
on each
very
other.
good allies with
Yeah, we depend
Russia.
on each other. Yeah.
They border Russia. They have a pretty solid relationship.
I think that they
Putin
recognize the
did go-
miscalculation right now.
They do recognize the miscalculation, but if a conflict were to break out, I mean, we cannot guarantee if a major conflict were to explode, we cannot be 100% sure where China lies on this, where the East lies on
That's
it.
true.
I mean, India as well has a solid relationship. Well, not a solid. India has a good relationship with Russia. We see the story of the Indian immigrants or the Indian students that are trying to get back to India, but they're not able to because India isn't letting them back in. They are pretty well allied with Russia. They have a good connection. They have a deep, strong history with Russia. India also has a great relationship with India has a strong relationship with the United States as
Pretty
well.
sure India has been building their arsenal and bombs and
Mhm.
and such as well lately.
And as well, we've got the Middle East. How is the Middle East turning out?
Yeah.
We see Saudi Arabia. I mean, Saudi Arabia is very much fine with what's going on because it means the price of oil is raising up. They're fine with that. But Saudi Arabia was courting Trump very highly. The UAE was one of the 3 countries that abstained on that UN vote to condemn the invasion. So we don't know where UAE stands on that. I don't think we need to worry about Israel, although Israel did kind of halt did prevent any transference of Iron Dome technology. But let's not worry about Israel. Israel is firmly on the U.S.'s side, I think.
I would also want to add that the world getting involved, any NATO country getting involved in the conflict, will create World War III. This is
I have to disagree with you because
think so?
already the West has already been sending
No,
infantry arms.
if
NATO countries like France, like
they're
Germany,
fighting on the
whatever,
ground against Russian troops.
they have. Well, I don't know about.
That's what I'm
actually
saying.
fighting
Now,
on the-
I think if troops fight on the ground against Russian troops, that will invoke the NATO, right?
Well,
Other
that's
countries
never
will-
going to happen. That's never
Yeah,
going to
I
happen.
mean that would be the disaster. We don't want to get there.
But
at all.
we will never get there. That's the thing. There's never
Hopefully.
going to be there's never going to be a case of a NATO nation sending troops out to fight a foot war in the invasion. That's just never going to happen.
What
But
there
this
will
is
be,
why
what
Ukraine
there
wanted to
can
part of
be.
NATO.
Right.
This
Ukraine
is why
wanted-
Ukraine
Because that
wanted
would
to be
guarantee
part.
their independence.
But at the same time, what I think we might end up seeing, troops being deployed to member countries that are neighbors
Poland.
that are neighbors with Russia. We could see some in Estonia, for example, Poland. I think this is the start of an escalation. I don't know how far it will go, but I see Russia being having been significantly more risky with this decision to invade, and I wonder if Russia is willing to be more risky. I mean, granted, there has been a pretty. I guess Russia was maybe taken by surprise by the amount of unity that was shown within the West, and as well, I believe they predicted that the United States would be a bit more in turmoil over this than mute and in turmoil domestically over this. I mean, we have seen some right wingers like praise Putin and say why we should be on Putin's side instead of Biden, but that didn't really do too much, I think, in the grand scale of Americans.
They're the minority.
Being,
Whether they want to call themselves the majority or not, they're the minority.
Mm-hmm. And I'm rambling, but to circle back to Europe, I believe a couple days ago we did get a message or a statement from a Russian diplomatic spokesperson who did say that there would be harsh consequences if Sweden and Finland were to go along that line and look to join NATO as well. So Russia, despite what's happening so far in this conflict, Russia is still very much wary of the expansion of NATO.
I think we should point out too, though, that this is not, even though this war is starting right now, this is something that Ukrainians have been dealing with for 8 years since Crimea was taken over.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we should also point out a little bit to what Ali said in the comments, that a lot of people are saying, this is kind of all on all of us, because we've always looked the other way with Putin's abuses because we were happy to take their money all the way back to Bush Sr.
This is U.S. foreign policy, kind of in a nutshell.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, there was so many mistakes the U.S. has made due to wanting to take money.
By the way, particularly this conflict was a little bit galvanized by U.S. intervention because prior to the current president being in power of Ukraine, Zelensky, Ukraine since like the early 2000s has literally switched authorities, governments 5 times, and it's like literally like an insane amount of political turmoil and governmental instability that led up to this moment. And as a matter of fact, one of the far right movement explosions that occurred after the annex of Crimea that allowed, I forget his name, but one of the former presidents was like very close to fascist level dictator and took away a lot of rights from the citizens, did a lot of terrible things, like not that long ago, like not even 6 years ago. That entire far right protest explosion happened with US support. That occurred with US support. So you can trace back US's involvement in sort of like the general instability of Ukraine going back not even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you want to take it outside of this specific conflict to elsewhere in the world right now, why don't we look to Yemen, right? And the conflict in Yemen, where I think it's 400,000 dead now, 100,000 being children dying mostly of man-made starvation, because we are selling Saudi Arabia the weapons to carry on that conflict, and Yemen has been absolutely ravaged by it, and that's just more of the same from the United States in terms of its foreign policy, and that's also a topic that we don't discuss enough, frankly.
This, Ali, thank you for this, because let's not forget that president in the Ukraine, Manafort worked on his campaign. Like Manafort was out in Ukraine working on a far right dictator psycho's campaign in Ukraine to help destabilize the region, and then after that, he comes here to work on Trump's campaign as his campaign manager.
Yep.
How can we forget that?
And also, Ali pointed out, I think it was Ali pointed out to me earlier today as well, that conversation that Trump had with the president of Ukraine. What was it? It was like a 30-minute phone call conversation that was written. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right, Nick, you want to speak to it? Because I can't articulate it as well as probably you guys can. So go talk about it.
Raj, do you want to bring it up? Can we get a link for that maybe?
Actually,
I'm going to pull up a link with a bunch of stuff. Hang on. Raj, you want to speak to that for a second?
I mean, in a nutshell, what was it exactly? He was basically trying to. You were just,
he was asking basically, I guess, for the current president of Ukraine to, I guess, be an instrument for Putin in a way. Like, I don't know how to articulate it.
So he tried to extort him for political dirt, essentially.
This is what Ali just brought it up. He was
asking for dirt on Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden and like what was going on. And he wouldn't give aid to the Ukraine.
I mean, that's what Trump specifically did. That's what Trump specifically did. Yeah.
Yes.
Trump specifically withheld $400 million of aid to Ukraine unless and then the phone call was, unless you give me dirt on Hunter, you're not getting this aid.
Which also sets up my prior theory that Trump has known about this for a long time and was trying to make sure all the chips were going to fall where they were supposed to. And he was dangerously close to pulling this off, to where today we would have had Trump in power, cozying up with Putin, and China coming in and be like, I'm going to help back you guys as well. And before you know it, we could have been a fascist country. Before you know it.
What I will say, slight change of topic on this. What I want to say, I want to commend the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, on that, because he was pretty fresh when he was pretty freshly elected when he came into office and had to deal with that. That was fairly recent for him, fairly new for him, and he was not a trained politician. He came in as like a comedian. He was like on a hit TV show.
And then, no, this is awesome.
That was actually it was pretty funny. In the TV show, he was a guy that became president out of nowhere, and then after that, he became president. And when he became president, he straight up started dealing with this Trump thing very, very soon after he was elected. I mean, he was elected. What year was he elected?
Like 2016, 2017.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Was it after Crimea? Because I think Crimea.
It was after the Minsk agreements, which were in like 2014, 2015.
So. Oh, okay. So then it was probably 2016.
Yeah.
So he started his campaign at the end of December 2018. He won the election.
Yeah,
He
and
won the
Trump
first
just
round of
comes up
election
and tries
March
to extort
2019.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's pretty badass, though. I mean, have you guys seen that? Like, you know, the U.S. offered him a ride out of there, and he was like,
We need
I need
ammunition.
ammunition. I don't
not
need a
a ride.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I do want to repeat that
There's a lot of people fangirling.
let's not completely forget like also all of his policies. He's really badass. His actions, no matter what's going to happen, he is now going to be. If he dies, he's going to be a martyr for Ukraine forever, and if he lives, he's president for life almost. So he's
He's done very well for himself politically,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of so between not to make a lighter topic here, but between him and also Miss Ukraine out there with a gun, the Reddit
Right.
feeds and the TikToks have abounded with the fangirling and the fanboying over those two. It's pretty entertaining. Not that war is entertaining at all, but they if somebody's gonna make war look good, they are right now.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention with regards to refugees, obviously this conflict, any greater conflict that emerges from this, if such a conflict occurs, will incur a significant amount of refugees, and luckily this time European nations were very willing to accept a lot of Ukraine refugees this time, after not being accepting with Syrian refugees.
So
I'm very happy for Ukraine
and to make this a little bit, to piggyback on that, there was a really interesting video I saw. I have to find it from a Polish outlet where they were talking. Well, this is different, right? We're not used to seeing people with blue eyes and blonde hair. They're living in peace. They're not used to war. We have to do something about it, which shows the.
I have a link for it. Hang on.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it, Nick?
It was like an
that clip?
interview. It was an interview being done, and some guy was like, "Oh, we're not, blue or blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. We're not used to this kind of conflict." And then the reporter was like, right, oh yeah, it's not like out in Afghanistan or Iraq, right? Like it was
There
just
was a
this weird
BBC
coded
reporter
like
that said another
messaging,
one.
Yeah, some
It-
double
it-
speak.
It's crazy to see
Yeah.
how much ethnocentrism and racism plays a role in the way nations behave towards people of
Other
skin
nations.
colors from other nations, right? Considering them, oh, they're okay, they're used to war, they're brown. No, that's just
And the way the media treats these other countries, these countries that are exotic to them. I mean, as we said before, the Yemen conflict is largely ignored in our media. The Syrian conflict, I don't think the Syrian conflict got nearly
not at all.
as much love and care in the handling and delivering of the story as
Especially
Ukraine has.
when Assad was literally chlorine gassing his own citizens.
Mhm.
And you remember back at the time, the media
And Russia
outrage.
got involved in that conflict. And they came out the victors in that conflict from the proxy war perspective. Assad remained in power. Russia and the coverage on that was nowhere to be found as it is here. And this is the largest military conflict in Europe since World War II. I mean, that's certainly worth covering, and this coverage has been fantastic. But we should be seeing more coverage of these issues in Yemen, in Syria, because those conflicts are devastating for their people, and we as a nation, as the United States, and as the West on the whole, we have a significant responsibility to bear for what's occurred in that region. And it really is frustrating.
Are
here's
you
the clip
streaming
real
it
quick.
through
Found a video?
Google Chrome, Nick? It's
I
not
am.
an
We'll
audio
have
message
volume. No
from-
worries. Here it is. Are we ready?
Yep.
Real quick.
I'm sorry. It's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair
Is it
being
playing for
killed,
you guys? Not
being
playing for
killed
me.
every day with Putin's missiles.
Was that-
It's not playing for me.
Oh, I hear it.
Oh, but there's no video? How about, sorry.
I hear I didn't see the video moving, but I heard the
Emotional
audio.
because I see
Is this good?
European people
No, not for
with
me.
blue eyes and blue
Strange. Some
Do you want to
technical
send me the link? Maybe I
difficulties.
can.
But you
have
can
it
hear the
working.
audio. Just play
How
it with
about,
the
how about
audio.
I got I got it. I got this one. I got a small clip that our friend from our Discord channel, Shirko, provided. Wait, where did it go? Okay, where we might be able.
It's
to,
really emotional for me because I see.
Great. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Let's play that.
Me, I'm sorry. It's really emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles and his helicopters and his rockets.
This isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
It's funny because it's like he even comments like, "Oh, you have to be careful with how you say that." Oh yeah, because it's not like Iraq
or
and
hope.
Afghanistan.
The key word is
not civilized society.
What does civilized even mean?
Guys,
Like,
are we glossing over the fact that he said or hope it would happen? He said at the end or expect or hope it would happen. Like
That's
we
terrible.
hope that.
Like we hope.
Why would
right,
we hope?
Right.
yeah,
Disgusting.
I can't.
So
But racism is dead, right, guys? Post-racial America, racism.
Oh
is
yeah,
dead.
totally. We shouldn't be
Racism
talking
is
about
no more.
DEI or critical race theory or any of
No,
that
no.
because we don't want to, indoctrinate the children or harm them.
It's
can't.
really frustrating, seeing
is.
all of that.
Especially friendly reminder to everybody to be very, very cautious about where you're reading your news, where you're watching your news, because especially when it comes to foreign information about foreign policy. Oh, Laren dropped, but I'm sure she'll be back in a moment. But be very mindful about where you're consuming your content about foreign news, because the Western media, and I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there is a narrative that Western media is going to push that is going to be in line with what
Fiscal
supports
interest.
Western ideology, Western, I don't want to say supremacy, but the angle, look at clips like the ones we just showed, and there's always like this tinge of, this little tinge of Western superiority that trickles through.
Eurocentrism, as it's called.
Eurocentrism trickles through a lot of the narratives when it comes to reporting on international policy.
So just to shift topics for a tiny bit, because we're still, in a pandemic. There's still COVID all around the world. Studies have come out and they have shown that points to Wuhan market as the origin of the pandemic, not a leak. To a pair of extensive studies over the weekend.
So, meaning not a leak of what? From a
lab,
yeah.
like made in a lab.
SARS-2 emergence very likely resulted from at least 2 zoonotic events. They have all figured out. If everyone's interested, this is the title of the articles and wants to read it. This was pretty interesting, pretty good. It's calms down the conspiracy theorists who think it's some sort of purposeful China leak. It's not it. So,
I mean, it doesn't calm them down.
They're not going to
give us.
The thing
they don't know
us-
they don't know what real news anyway is. Like they don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I think we need to have a really good talk about really good talk about
Education,
news literacy with our
news
with
literacy.
our.
We need to have people back in our libraries. Like when you go to renew your license, now it's mandated you have to take a civics course through the library or something. Like
oh really?
Something that you can't just exist in this world not knowing the very basics of what is standard here. I could go on about this forever. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up now.
I agree. No,
we can. That's a conversation.
The lack of civics education. The lack of civics education, I think, and philosophy and civics. I think the lack of them in our the lack of requirement of them in our education system is probably responsible for a lot of the problems we're facing as a nation right now with the lack of education in general. I mean, and
our history
it's purposeful. I don't think it's not purposeful. I actually think it's very purposeful. because the more people
Keep
you
us
have,
dumb.
the more people you have who are informed about their civic life, about the rules, or about how society is governed around them, the more they're going to want to be involved and want to participate. And we all know that part of an authoritarian playbook is to make sure that people aren't as informed as possible, to make it as easy as possible
Of
to
course,
do things at the highest level.
Texas just
Right.
is it Texas or Florida just passed a law that you can't talk about gays and trans issues?
Florida.
Florida,
Oh, I
right?
No,
thought it
so they're actually kind of like wanting to mandate. So I'm pretty sure this has no actual authority at all, that they can't actually like carry out the legal authority behind this, but they're looking for like teachers and other people to like report if kids are like trying to get,
like a mandated
that's
reporter.
yeah, they're trying
So
to
now
make it like
they're-
a mandated reporter
So-
thing.
so-
Exactly.
That's
So Governor Abbott of
illegal.
Texas.
Like that's a
Yeah,
civil
Governor
rights
Abbott-
issue.
That's why I'm
Send me
saying.
that link,
That's why I'm
Raj. Send
saying
me
it
that
has
link, Raj,
no
real
like.
Sorry, what down?
Oh, it goes to their Senate tomorrow, but that's what they're trying to make happen.
Okay.
But right, Laren, that's the thing. I don't think there's any legal juice behind that whatsoever.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the ACLU is going to be on top of that, like right away.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
The whole another class that we can't forget. I mean, we mentioned it, we alluded to it a little bit with CRT, but history classes are so important to get right, especially when we're talking about a Eurocentric worldview. We have to talk about how we teach history classes in terms of world history. Because I mean, even in like World War II education, right? A lot of focus is Eurocentric, when there was definitely the entire Eastern Front, the Japanese, the Indian army,
Germany.
the Indian forces that fought in that war as well.
The wars during
African
Africa.
forces.
You look at
for
the
that.
borders today of Africa as a Kenyan speech. It is leftovers from that imperial time, and they're just stuck with it as it is, right? This
Did
is
you see
all-
the speech that Kenya made? I think it was Kenya
Yeah, it
about
was
this
incredible.
It was
conflict.
the Kenyan ambassador.
That was a really good points that he
Yeah.
made in that speech.
I liked it a lot. I shared it with Don not too long ago.
did, you
actually,
did.
Oh,
I
nice.
introduced them to that. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
looking for this graphic. It's
Which
a
graphic?
graphic. It's kind of like a meme that I had found that I had found on Twitter earlier today. And
What a
I'm seeing if
world.
I can find it and share it.
I'm just
with
laughing about
everyone.
the fact that we're like, talking about war in Europe in 2022, and we're expressing our feelings on it in the form of memes. And
Well,
we're
I
live
think one
on
of the
a computer.
darkest things I think Raj shared us in our friend group chat that kind of like put me on edge. Let me try to get that going.
Is it the
file.
Woodrow Wilson thing?
No. It's
Okay.
the one. It's the juxtaposition of the
Everything
coverage
bad
in
can
the
trace back
Applebee's
to Woodrow
commercial.
Wilson.
Have
folks.
you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, the Applebee's commercial. Yeah.
Oh wait, I did see that today.
Yeah, let me
And,
get
we
that
should
going.
share it if you have it, because
Some
I-
guerrilla
I-
marketing
wow.
from the Applebee's team, profiting off of.
I have it. I have it.
I got it.
Okay, you got it.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Who messed that up? Like who?
That's not a mess up. That's on purpose. That's an on
And
purpose.
it's still see it.
That's a
the thing, it's not
commercial
like-
during the middle of CNN with Russia
Right.
like invades Ukraine, and then they put a
Right.
commercial, and then with that banner.
It's not like it's not like CNN stopped broadcasting and the commercial went on. That was still CNN broadcasting an Applebee's commercial in the middle of the footage.
Right. Like that's like if you forgot to take the framing off of us or something. You know, like how we can do like the same sort of thing.
Right.
You can like have
Yeah.
a whole
Right.
border going on.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I just
It-
can't.
It reminds me of it's just such a perfect example of the way U.S. has profited over wars in the past couple of years. Couple of years. 40, 50. What am I talking about? The last half
Hundreds.
century. No, the last century. The U.S. made tons of profit off World War II. So
Yeah.
I want to also just make
You
sure
find that meme, Raj?
we keep it. I haven't found it yet, but I just want to make sure we keep mentioning that no matter how much we're criticizing the United States here, we're not trying to, because some radicals on the right will come in and try and do a gotcha. We criticize the U.S. on their mistakes because they were mistakes. They were errors. They were things that were made that were not made with the values that these same
America's
leaders
about.
tend to push, and it is hypocritical of the country, and it's wrong. But that doesn't mean that we're pro Vladimir Putin
or anti-US.
or anti-US.
Or anti-US,
Right.
you know.
We
For
want,
me,
we
this-
want
I
the
think we're the
country to
most
do better.
patriotic
This
in a
is the-
way. I mean,
being an adult means this.
Yep.
Being an adult means I make mistakes. I recognize my mistakes. I recognize what I did wrong, and I grow and get better. To walk around the world, I'm perfect.
accountability.
Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to be an adult, be responsible for your actions, and get better. And people who are unabashedly love America no matter what, these are children. These are children. And I beg everyone out there to be an adult.
I want, you know,
Accountability.
a country can only grow as far as the people inside of it want to grow and want it to grow with it, right?
Mhm.
It's like Danan put it perfectly. You know, we need to take us as a society, the group of people, as United States citizens right now, need to hold this nation accountable for the injustices it's carried out for over 100 years, you know, across the world. And we need to do better. We need to make sure that the government, that our representatives are being held to the standard where we have learned from those mistakes, where we're trying to do better, where we're trying to be a positive force for the world, not necessarily for the supremacy of the US, but for the well-being of humanity as a whole.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's something I talk about literally on a daily basis is where has accountability gone? Not just in the grand scheme of we're talking politics or, you know, mistakes in nations' histories. I'm just talking about your regular average person. Accountability for actions. And Don, you summed it up perfectly. Like, where are the adults?
Where are the adults? I want adults at the table. I'm done with having children at the table. If we have issues, we have to deal with them, right? People on the right love to talk about personal responsibility, but group responsibility might even be more important, right? We all know about the kid who gets bullied, and well, it's not my responsibility. That's a personal responsibility. Group responsibility is getting involved. Group responsibility is making sure to work together forward.
I agree 1,000%.
Nice slogan placement there, Don.
Product placement for us there.
Absolutely. I can't say anything more than that. That's exactly, you guys have basically said it all. I mean, there's such a push in this country over the years of individual kind of liberty, individual kind of responsibility or whatever. But when it comes to coming together as a country, if it's not war, what else has the United States come together on? I mean, really, during the civil rights era, there was so much pushback on that. And when legislation was actually passed, there was still pushback, and we still see pushback on a lot of this, on a lot of race-based issues today. You know, there is so much of a split on everything in this country right now.
I'm praying that this makes people on the right, especially those that have been the loud majority, that have been a little walking down the incorrect path here. I really hope that this situation though makes them realize how dangerously close we were to something horrible, and that we are as patriotic as they are. We are as enthusiastic about or determined to keep our freedoms as they are. But like, this crying about freedoms is not going to fly anymore. Like, we're looking across the world and we're seeing a nation right now that, you know, there hasn't been war in Europe for however many years. And I hate to say it, but this is going back to the racism thing. That's people that they can relate to. In a way, you know, it's people that look like Americans, like in the sense of what they think Americans should look like.
Right.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
hear what you're saying.
Exactly. Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly.
I haven't been able. I wasn't able to find the graphic. I lost it, which
That's
is a
all
shame
right.
because it's
The
a
Woodrow
perfect.
Wilson thing?
No, it was actually a map of the world, and it was color coded to how the West and how I guess white America and the white portion of the West views the world, and so it has like the area where it's like the United States and Canada and Europe, and it's like and Australia, and it's like this is the area. If something happens here, it's an absolute tragedy. We need to cover it all the time. Then there was like another area that's colored, like the Middle East is colored and North Africa, and it's like we can't do anything, just pray. And then there's the portion of Africa, the rest of Africa is colored one color, and it's like don't even care, you know. And then the rest of the world is like we don't want to get too worried. You know,
if you find it later, Raj, can you put it up on the Blue Island page and group?
Yeah. If I find it, I'll post it in the group. If you want, I'll share it on the socials as well.
Yeah, just because
sure.
I think it's important.
I want to comment on this real quick. Masks. I don't think masks are done. So I think Ali is referring to
In schools.
mask mandate in schools ending next Wednesday. As far as the right is concerned, this is the win. This is the win they've been waiting for, right? It doesn't matter how you. It doesn't
It wasn't
matter.
a win.
It doesn't
It was
matter that
numbers.
most.
It's science.
Right. It doesn't matter that most people actually vaccinated now, that the hospitals are starting to like ease up a little bit, and most people have
That we
actually
got
done
out of the
right
most recent
thing.
surge.
Right. That doesn't matter. What matters is that, that the oppression is finally over, and it's because we fought so hard to get it over with. I'm sure that's where their logic is.
Of course.
That
That's the
that
narrative.
aside, it's never going to be over. The thing about the mask is never going to be over. Anytime, this isn't going to be the last time there's a breakout of some disease in this country, or any country for that matter. And the next time that happens, I can guarantee you there are still going to be people wearing masks regardless, because I think most people rationally recognize the positives about mask wearing in general. Let's face it.
Especially during flu season.
I was going to say
During-
cold
it
and flu
doesn't matter.
season.
I think the population has generally realized that it's just better to wear a mask in general because you're not spreading your disease everywhere around.
Yep.
Right? So as long as
Hygiene, basic hygiene.
basic hygiene is now going to be turned into politics. That's how this is going to end up. It's not over yet.
Everything.
Before you know it,
The
you're not
mask
a
thing
man
Everything
without
is
your butt.
politics.
You're not
No
a
matter
real
what.
American if you wipe your butt and wash your hands.
But if we're now
Only
if we're
bidets.
only talking about Board of Ed meetings, I'm sure CRT is going to be a thing. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of this has been something that's been going on at school board meetings for a while, right? Like certain books can't be
Mouse
brought
is
to
banned in
school.
Tennessee.
And even before the mouse thing, there were books about slavery that were constantly being
Harry Potter.
removed from schools because of I don't
Huckleberry
know,
Finn.
bad excuses, bad reasons. The issues that are kind of in the forefront now have always really happened, and they're always going to continue to happen. They're always going to be a problem at the Board of Ed meetings. And you say that, but
they'll manufacture something else.
they'll
Tucker
manufacture
Carlson is
something
going to
else.
get on primetime news
Tucker Carlson
and just say some nonsense.
But here's the thing: if you wanna really push an attack on Tucker Carlson, on these Republicans, on the far right, a loud majority, the thing that we have been given as somewhat of a blessing. I don't even want to call it a blessing because it's not a blessing; it's a tragic issue. Ukraine, the Tucker Carlson's position on Ukraine, the ensuing Republican and far right comments on Ukraine about how we should support Putin, about what have the Democrats had to offer you. You can hit them with those quotes over and over and over again. Because what are they doing? They're siding with Vladimir Putin over
The United States
freedom.
over freedom.
Not even just the United States, over
You can't make
literal
this up
freedom.
anymore.
Over literal freedom. There's no way to spin it. This is Russia's attempt to come into Ukraine, destabilize the country, make it a failed state, or put in a puppet government and control it on their own.
Because they don't like what's happening geopolitically.
And end their democracy. Make it not free. And they're
And
like,
it is a democracy.
well, that's not as big a threat as Joe Biden. Are you kidding me?
These and it is a democracy. It has the elections in Ukraine were deemed as open and fair election by respected parties who evaluate that kind of thing. So you can't make the argument that the government right now wasn't like elected freely and fairly. That's a freely and fairly democratically elected government that's currently under threat of destabilization and invasion by a foreign sovereign power.
Yeah,
There's no spinning that.
If someone comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, your CRT is against my freedoms," or "Your mask wearing you're stifling my freedoms," bro, you are against freedom. You're against countries having freedom. So why would I take what you say? Why would I care what you say?
Mhm.
So our friend Everett just sent me a tweet, and I think we'll end because we're about to reach the 60-minute mark. So I think it's a little funny, because I talked about, before you know it, washing your hands is gonna be like, like a Democrat.
You're a sissy for washing your hands. Back in my day, we would just get in the mud and get dirty, and things would be great. Our immune systems got stronger.
So let me play this video because I started watching it and I want to react to it live. So let me just put this up. Give me 1 second.
Okay. We veered off Ukraine a little bit, but that's okay.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, let's listen.
As I told you, my 2019 resolution is to say things on air that I say off air. I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands.
Someone help me!
No, I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming immune to all of the
Exactly.
bacteria.
I can't get.
As I
told.
What did I say? What did I say?
Oh my
God! What did I say?
You see, I am
I
Nostradamus. I am Nostradamus.
I called it. This is what they're thinking. No, it makes our immune system literally.
That's
Amazing.
Well,
disgusting.
on that note, everyone.
That's hideous.
Well, on that note, thank you all for coming down. It's been awesome. Share, like, subscribe, all the nonsense.
And I'll be back every Sunday.
Ew, it's pretty gross. It's pretty
You
gross.
guys happy?
Well, remember, together forward, everyone.
Together forward.
Together forward.